And on the afternoon that war was declared, a Saturday afternoon, I was playing soccer on the local ground, and when the news came through, as soon as the game finished, a friend of mine, Gordon Gunn, appropriately, and I hurried round to the drill hall and lined up for the army.
Were there many of you?
Yes. I think the first lot that left Geraldton were about 25 or 30.
Was there enthusiasm throughout Geraldton for the war when it was declared?
We couldn't get there. We couldn't get there quick enough. We were all afraid that the war would be over before we got to it.
There were half a dozen of us, or maybe more, that I can remember that were underage. We had to put our age up, to get in.
And you did that?
Oh, yes. And as a matter of fact, I forged my father's consent, signed his name so that I could get in. He wouldn't give me his consent, so I signed his name instead.
Well, the war was on, so there was adventure and waiting for you. The excitement of war is something that grips young men, fortunately for the nation. And I don't think there's any feeling of fear. You just say, well, so what? They've had this, I might miss out. And I couldn't get there quickly enough before I thought the war might end before I got there. So let's hurry. That was the attitude of young men. Those that were going into the trenches, I agree that it was a pretty grim prospect. The same as those that went into the Flying Corps depended upon their own ability to control their aircraft and to survive encounters with the enemy in the air. But that's all part of the excitement of flying in wartime. But those who went in the trenches, I think it was a terribly unpleasant prospect to be cooped up in these narrow trenches, unable to get adequate protection from enemy shootings.
And so what was life in the trenches like from day to day?
Bloody awful.
Can you describe it?
Yes, full of lice. Only a little bit lice. I scratched all up the side of both legs here with lice, and you feel them crawling on you. When you go into supports of a night time, you used to lie down the support trenches, and you'd be wriggling all night like that with the lice over you. And only very little water and hard biscuits, and when we got jam, it'd be all taste of kerosene. It'd be made out of kerosene tins and never washed properly.
And we were sitting in a shell hole discussing a terrible wound, the loss of 2 legs, for example. And I know that I was very, very firm in my statement that if I lost both my legs, I'd be thankful if somebody come along and finished me off. Without 2 legs, life would not be worth living. Well, we went into the action that night and the next morning and tried to help some of the wounded out of the front. I came across a chap leaning against a concrete pillbox. He had both legs shot off, and he asked me to shoot him. He was an Australian. If he'd been a German, I couldn't have shot him, despite the fact that the previous night I had been very firm in my statement that that's what I would wish. So I temporised. I said to him, all right, lad, I'll go and get somebody with a stretcher and we'll get you out. Now, I funked that. I went back and got a stretcher and went to look for him, but fortunately a shell had blown into pieces in the meantime.
Later on, the scouts did go into the town, and I found the Turk with his leg, with the shin bone sticking right out. You know, in a bad way, he couldn't stand up. I carried him to the Turkish hospital. We're not far away. I knew he couldn't get there, but that's the sort of thing we did.
At the landing at Gallipoli, and our unit didn't get ashore till sundown, but we were laying off the peninsula watching the bombardment all through the day, and there were landing reinforcements all the time. the day of the landing that we got ashore finally, and I lasted 7 days. The next Sunday night we made a night attack and I got shot through the shoulder.
Were you then evacuated off Gallipoli?
Well, I went down after it was dressed at the dressing station, went down on Simpson's donkey to the beach.
Oh, did you? Did he take you down?
Yes, so I went down on this donkey and they gave me another dressing there, and then they rode us out to the hospital ship back to Egypt. Went to France then, on to the Battle of the Somme. We made an attack on the Hindenburg line, and of course we got surrounded. And some of us got back, and I was one of those who didn't get back, and of course got taken prisoner. And I was a prisoner of war then for 19 months.
And how was that?
Oh, starvation for the first 3 months before we got the Red Cross parcels. After that, well, we got enough to eat. It was a very depressing period for me. I hated it. 3 attempts to escape from that part. We got caught each time and sentenced to 14 days dark cell.
Did the war affect him afterwards? Did he?
Well, I didn't know much about it, but he'd had malaria and he was a swine for quite a few years.
What's that mean? He
very moody, very down. It's a sort of a fever.
What sort of thing would happen to him?
Very, just sit there for hours like that.
Oh, depression.
Depression, very depressed.
He didn't get delirious or anything?
Oh, no, never got that bad. He'd take some Disprin, Hasbro those days. A few times. I didn't know what he was for quite a long while. I used to think it was something that I'd done.
It's terrible to live with that, isn't it?
Oh, it's dreadful.
Yes.
I was quite a few years before I found out.
Did it get you down too? It get you down, wouldn't it?
More or less, not. But I was pretty strong.
Yes.
I had to be.
and did he talk about the war or not?
No, it's awfully funny. The only time that he ever talked when some of his old cronies came in. But otherwise he never talked. I've got a son who was in the last one. He was up in New Guinea patrolling in one of these, patrol boats. And we didn't even know where he'd been. He never told us.
Your son never talked about it either?
Never talked about it.
And can you visualise what it was like when you first got there?
I had no idea till I got there.
4 lines of chaps went over the top and got knocked over, didn't they?
Oh, yes, they never got...
Were you were in the trenches at that time?
I was waiting my turn to go too.
You were the next stop up, were you?
Mm-hmm.
And can you describe that particular event?
Well, look, honestly, you don't think of anything. Your mind seems to be a sort of a blank. You don't take any notice of anything. I came back and I got 7.6 a week pension. When before a doctor when I went down to the old base hospital, I got 7.6 a week pension. And then when I went under 3 months treatment at a time down the base hospital for this bilharzia. We used to watch him on a microscope hatch. So we get him out, you put him onto a little piece of glass. And you watch him kick their way out of the shell. And they're in a lip shape with a little prong sticking off at the end of them. Well, I used to burrow through your bladder with that. And I'd build a castle in your bladder, and when they burst, that's when the blood would come away from you. So we had quite a good talk on down at Pace Hospital.
Yeah.
Come out and I give you a month or 6 weeks out, and you have to go back again. It was compulsory to go back, because I was working for the Public Works Department at the time, and we turned around and if you didn't go, well, the quarantine authorities just come after you and take you.
When you think about the war, what do you think about first? What comes into your mind when you remember it?
Today, it might be that it was a terrible waste of time and money and effort and above all of life, that it was useless, that it settled nothing, and that there should be some much more rational way of deciding differences between nations. But that's not what I would have thought of, say, 40 or 50 years ago. Then I might have thought about the mateship of war, the fears, the worries, the distress. I might have thought of the strains. But I think above all, thought about the mateship, about the men I worked with, the men I knew, the men who held a special place in my memory.